Now, what one? I don't see that anywhere. Anyway, the Tibetan truth text says, whichever of your negative emotions is more strong, deal with that first. As I have already explained earlier. You have so many afflictive emotions, but among whichever has a predominant presence, try to deal with that first. Give up every hope of reward. So that is there in English also. Give up every hope of reward. That means you are not doing this mind training practice to become famous, to get recognition, or to get a good rebirth in the future life for oneself, or even nirvana for yourself. So the purpose of such mind training practice is to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. You are not expecting to get something for yourself, however high the goal is. So there's the meaning. Give up every hope of reward. You are not expecting the reward doesn't mean you don't get the reward. Okay, so don't worry. Don't worry. If you do the job, the fruit will be there. Avoid poisonous food. Just as if you take poisonous food, it will kill you. Similarly, whatever virtuous, spiritual practices you do, if you mix it with the poisons of self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping attitude, then all your virtuous practices will become poisoned. It's like poisoning your food. So make sure that it is possible, because sometimes when you are learned or rich, the more learned, the more famous, the more rich you are, unfortunately, the self-cherishing attitude is stronger. There's a lot of risk, even in the case of the monks who study in the monastery for many, many years. They become experts, you see. Great scholars on Buddhist teaching, which is good thing. But the risk is that knowledge, that learning itself might boost your ego. I am somebody. How dare you challenge me, So that is called medicine becoming poison. That's called God turning into devil. So whatever good qualities, learning, knowledge, fame, name, whatever you have, still you should maintain humility. Still you should maintain humility. When I was in the school, just regular school, my religious teacher used to instruct us by saying that if you're in the 6th class and if you're getting number 1 in the school, in the class, then don't get arrogant. You're nothing. Still above you there are 8th class, 9th class, 10th class, 11th class. So bring your arrogance down. Now in that class, if you're the number last, last one in the class, then also don't get discouraged, because even up under you have the 6th class, 5th class, 4th class, and so forth, you see. So like that, you see. Like that. It's all relative. So when you see in this way, then it will help you not to get puffed up, not to get inflated, not to develop that self-cherishing attitude. Don't maintain misplaced loyalty. Misplaced loyalty. If somebody had harmed you, then if you, because of that harm, if you maintain revengefulness, if you maintain revengefulness, if you want to revenge that person, then is it good or not bad? Bad. So therefore stop that feeling of revenging. So then if that is the case, then how would you explain this? Don't maintain misplaced loyalty. How would you explain this? It's not so clear to me.
It's concerning revenge. It's nothing to do with revenge.
Maybe to place our loyalty to a fake teacher or fake way, fake spiritual.
Misplaced loyalty.
Maybe sometimes when someone harms you, you say, I swear to God I will do something to him. And then you develop this, someone develops this vow to do something, to revenge. And then that vow becomes a sort of a loyalty to, and sometimes you even forget about it, but then...
Looks good. Anyway, there are points like this we need to reflect carefully. Next.
Is that in the Tibetan also?
Huh?
Is it in the Tibetan also?
Yeah, Tibetan, but it's not very clear. It's one line explanation, but not so clear. It's there in the Tibetan, yes.
In the Hebrew translation it says something like, don't be so obvious.
Don't be so obvious. Translation is so difficult, you see. Translators have a very difficult job. Because translation is not easy. You need to know both the languages properly. You need to know the context. You need to know the real meaning, you know. And you need to have the patience to get the meaning properly to translate it. Mostly translators, they translate something hurriedly, you know, even when the meaning is not so clear. So I'm a translator, so I know the problem, you see. Yeah. So anyway, there's always a next time, so don't maintain misplaced loyalty. So misplaced loyalty, I think what you said sounds good. Misplaced loyalty. Okay, if you think that revenging is good, and by doing that you are doing something good, being loyal to the practice, then that is misplaced loyalty. I think it's something like that. Next is don't make malicious banter. What does that mean? That means if somebody had used harsh word, then as a response to that, you should not use harsh speech, which harms the mind of others. Okay? That's the meaning of don't make malicious banter. So basically saying don't use harsh speech. harsh speech is very hurting. There is a Tibetan saying which says that the word that you use may not be sharp like a blade or a sword, but it can chop the heart of other people into pieces. There's an English saying also which says a tongue that is 7 inches long, if this tongue which is 7 inches long uses a harsh speech, can fell a person 6 or 7 feet tall. The meaning? It can harm the other person.
It's in Judaism, we say that life and death. In Judaism, they say that life and death is in the hands of the tongue. And actually, publicly humiliating somebody is as if you make an act of killing. Because the power of speech and the power of combination of letters is so powerful. So put a lot of emphasis in Judaism about.
Also, okay.
Russians and such.
Don't lie in ambush. Most of the time we lie in ambush. I mean, this is very powerful, these teachings. That means if somebody harmed you, you may not say anything right now, but you keep it in your mind. Okay, I'll wait for you. So as soon as you get the opportunity, you attack. You're lying there in ambush to attack. So that's not good. Don't strike at the heart. Don't strike at the vital point. Heart means the vital point. That means you always look at the weak point of that person. Then you strike there. Some people get training in this. Some aristocrats, they get training in this. Because the way you go higher is to bring other people down, so that you have no competitors. So the way to bring other people is to find their weakness. When they're about to say something, do something, I say, shut up, I know who you are, I know what you did, then people remain really shut up. You see? So don't strike at the vital point. That means digging other people's faults. Or similarly reciting certain mantras to strike at the vital point of non-human beings and to destroy them. Okay. Don't place the load of a horse on a pony. A pony is weak comparing to horse, so the pony cannot carry the load of horse. So that means if you are given a responsibility, a big responsibility, and without carrying that responsibility, if you let someone who does not have the capacity to carry that responsibility or do that job, if you force that person to do that job, then that is absolutely wrong. And that's what we do all the time, you see. We never think about the pains and problems of other people, you see. Those good things, pleasant things we want to do. Those difficult things we want others to do, you see. So that is terrible, that is wrong. Or that this also means that if somebody okay, I think it's okay. Next is don't sprint to win the race. Now again, this one has a lot of different translations, but the meaning is, say there is a wealth or property that belongs to all of us, a shared property. Then out of deceitfulness and cunningness, you try to get it. So that is like sprinting to win the race. In other words, it means, for example, normally it happens if somebody says, "Oh, this is a wonderful thing. Who did this?" Then immediately you will sprint. I did this. When it's something good, leading to fame and name, praise, then you come forward. You sprint, like in the race. I did this. When somebody says, "Oh, what a mess," who did this? Everybody's silent. Nobody takes that responsibility. You see. So the bodhisattvas, they would normally come forward, say, if there's anything, not nice, not perfect, wrongdoing, it's me, not other people. Just save them, spare their life. Do whatever you want, you do it with me, like that. This is also what the parents do when something happens with their kids, The parents come forward, say, no, spare my kids, I'm responsible. I'm their parent, So like that. Bodhisattvas are like parents to all of us. Then in the Tibetan text it says something else. So it says something like, don't eat wrong food. Don't eat wrong food, which basically means while you expect something good to come to you for the long run, so temporarily you accept some loss, some defeat. Okay? Your aim is to get the greater good in the long run. So to get that, temporarily you accept some loss, as if you're a good person, Your aim is not to accept loss, but you really are aiming to get that long-term benefit. So that is like eating wrong food.
So avoid poisonous food?
Not that. That we already had. We already read that one. So there are a lot of different versions with this same text. There with the change of time, Then the next line is, don't turn gods into devils. We know this meaning. The ordinary worldly beings say that if your God that you have been propitiating, somehow if that God which you have been propitiating becomes unhappy with you and does you some harm, then you say that the God has turned into devil. The God has turned into devil. So that means even though you profess yourself to be a person engaging in mind training practice, but as a result, if you become very arrogant and all your practice then becomes non-religious practice or irreligious practice. The mind training should transform your mental attitude, but instead your mind becomes very arrogant, very unruly. Then that means your practice is not hitting the target. So it's like the evil force may be in the eastern direction, but you are trying to destroy it in the western direction. Your practice is not hitting the target. So that is called God turning into devil. So just as when we take the medicine, it should really cure that particular illness. So similarly, the purpose of mind training practice is that we should be able to abandon the self-cherishing attitude, reduce the self-cherishing attitude. So therefore, a bodhisattva, or one who reduces self-cherishing attitude, they always consider themselves as a servant to the rest of the sentient beings. Okay? Then in the Tibetan version there is one more line which says that do not create suffering for your happiness. Do not create suffering upon others for your personal happiness. For example, if you think that if my relatives and friends die, I will get a part of their wealth. So for your peace and happiness, you are expecting that suffering upon others. Or if my sponsor or benefactor dies, then somebody will make lot of offering to me. Or if someone who is a great meditator like you, if he dies, then I have no rival. So everybody will start coming to me. Or if my enemy dies, then I will prosper because nobody will then harm me. So in this way, for your personal happiness, if you expect sufferings on others, then this is called seeking suffering upon others for personal happiness. One or two questions? Please.
What's the difference between bodhicitta and bodhisattva?
Bodhisattva is the person.
Okay.
Bodhicitta is the mind. Yes.
I have a question about the if you choose to do something or you're forced to do something. So again, I'm taking it to the question about education. That when the children are small, you like force them to do certain things, or that like to study in classrooms and in high schools and stuff like that. And so my question is like, in these ages, should you let them, because sometimes when you let them choose freely, they get confused and they don't know what to do, and it end up in doing something that is not benefit for them. So my question is about.
So it is, I would say, not between choosing and forcing. It would be between choosing and guiding.
Even if for them at the moment.
Even for them, if you give the proper guidance, give the proper atmosphere, that guidance is needed because they don't have life's experience. But not forcing. Even in the classroom, of course, you have to observe certain discipline, but not so much force. That's why in all the schools they try to create atmosphere where people like to come, feel free, everybody is trying to do that. And force will not work.
The question is, what is the line between forcing and, obligate them to do certain things, as to behave in a good manner into someone. Not throw away
this is very tricky.
Yes,
This is really tricky because it depends on who is doing that. Who is doing that? And the whole system of education is questionable. How good it is that we have today. You see, there's a lot of even the system of education in America The American educationists themselves are questioning the usefulness of that. An education system in Japan or in Tibet, wherever, people are constantly questioning how relevant it is, you see.
Yeah.
So it is like almost like doing tightrope balancing, you see. There are areas where you need guidance, you need little bit people to do things, not force or whatever, obligation, whatever. You need to do things. That is also a little bit needed. But the core issue is that first there should be consideration that with this education there will be a holistic development of the child. Not just getting job. Not just get a job and earn money. Because that is the primary consideration in today's modern education, you see. And therefore people in the school, there's so much tension. In some countries, the students suffer so much to win that number one or whatever, to get that good job. So much pressure. So how good it is, you see. And we live in a very competitive society. But I would say that generally, of course, you need to get education, but what do you mean by education actually? And that is related to what do we mean by a human being. If you look at even this word, human being, human, the word human comes from, is a connotation of value. A value. So the education should be value-oriented education. The Sanskrit word for people is purush. Purush means somebody who has the capacity to do something good, not doing anything, but the capacity to do good. So that's what we need, value, goodness. At the end of the day, these are very important things that we need. But how much attention we are paying to these things today?
Yeah,
Whether ethics is taught or not in the school, whether morality is taught in the school or not. See. So this is a really big issue, and that's why even great thinkers like Einstein, he said these days teachers are bringing havoc in the life of the students in the school.
They are bringing what?
Havoc.
Okay.
Einstein said it. These days teachers are bringing havoc, destruction in the life of the students. Because he said this because the teachers always try to highlight what the students do not know. Ask questions regarding what they do not know. They are not paying attention to the potential of the students and how to nurture those potentials of each and every student. You see. So this is very complicated issue. But then the important fact is that when we talk about, as a human being, we have basically two things, a mind and a body. Okay, we need to fulfill the need of the body and the mind. So for the bodily need, we need house to stay, foods to eat, physical things. This is a physical, so for the flourishing of that physical things, we need physical material facilities. And there we are paying quite good enough attention. But that's not the whole thing. There's a thing called mind also. Not only mind, but it plays such an important role. And that part of the mind, the need of the mind is totally neglected. The flourishing of the mind. So that's why we have a materialistic education. So what we are doing is make people live like robots. Do everything mechanically. People are these days, many areas people are doing things mechanically, see, like machines. But we are not machines, we have all these human emotions. So how to deal with these human emotions? So that part of education is very much neglected. And it is because of this, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has intentionally wrote number of books to address this missing gap. He wrote Ethics for the New Millennium. Have you read that book? Have you read that book? See? Read that one. That's not a Buddhist text, but It's such a good book. Ethics for the new millennium. For the new millennium, what we need most is ethics.